To say my guest is a podcasting expert is a bit of an understatement. He really is the podcaster's podcaster. He has literally helped thousands of podcasters around the globe to achieve podcasting success. He runs 3 separate businesses that help podcasting and podcasters. And of course, he's behind not one, but I understand 6 podcasts. Mr. Colin Gray, I'm equal parts excited and nervous about being judged myself being a podcaster. Welcome to InboundBuzz.
Well, thanks very much for having me, Moby. No worries at all for having you, for coming on. And don't worry, I won't judge anything. I mean, everyone has different interview styles, and I'm still learning. No expert by any means in the old art of the interview.
That's okay. You can offline. You can tell me what I messed up or what I didn't. But yeah, man, it was really good to meet you in Boston for Inbound. And that's like I was talking to someone else yesterday today from HubSpot. I had a call with HubSpot, and I said, look, honestly, half of the reason, literally like maybe more than half, is to meet people. You know, you can catch up on a session anytime, but you can't always meet people. So you're just one good example of that. So it's good to finally have you on. Colin, before we kind of get into the nitty gritty, just fill in some of the gaps with my intro there. Tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe some of the, the podcasting businesses you're involved in.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I first got into podcasting. It was about 10 years ago now, 2007.
Wow.
As a listener, certainly. I actually got my first ever podcast on a cover disc on the front of Web Designer magazine, ironically. So in a hardcover medium, ended up with this digital thing that I got right into. And I was working at a university at the time. So I ended up teaching a range of lecturers how to podcast to help their teaching style. So it was as a supplement to their normal lectures and that kind of stuff. And really, I got really into it from there. I just got really into the kit. I'm a bit geeky about, new shiny things. So I got really into microphones and mixers and all that kind of stuff. And I started the podcast host, the website, to write about the stuff I was learning, really. It was just to write. Started out really as equipment reviews, microphone reviews, mixer reviews, then a bit about the business of podcasting. And I jumped out of the university into the business back in 2014 now. And I've been doing it ever since. Yeah, lucky enough that the site grew to a state where it could support me full time and started to grow a team around it ever since then. So now we've got 5 people actually now on the team, supporting people through the academy we run, all the free content we put on the website, and all the podcasts we run too. Yeah, so privileged to be able to make podcasts for a living.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So, I mean, it's funny. I didn't even know podcasting was around for that long. And look, I've only been doing it for about 18 months. So no offense. I just didn't know. I didn't know it's been around for that long. But I've only been doing, like I said, for 18 months. And I've noticed a phenomenal uplift in people talking about podcasting, getting onto podcasting, particularly in Australia as well, where it's no secret we're sort of 3 or 5 years behind when it comes to technology and marketing. And Colin, I guess the question is, if you haven't already started a podcast, which is what now, late 2017, is it too late to start? Are the opportunities still out there for people?
No, yeah, it's not too late at all. I mean, there's always going to be, there's more competition now than there ever has been, certainly. Like you say, there's been a huge uptick in the last year or so, even the last couple of years particularly. But there's still, I mean, you're choosing a medium, aren't you? When you get online, you start creating content, you start creating a reputation around your brand or your personal self, your personal brand. So you're choosing either podcasting, video, or blogging, really, with social to supplement it. And podcasting is still by far the least competitive space out there. Like, there's hundreds of millions of blogs out there. YouTube is saturated with video creators. But podcasting actually still, last time I checked the stats, can't remember exactly what it was, about 500,000 or so podcasts out there compared to the millions and millions of video channels and all those blogs as well. So it's still quite a low competition niche, really. And it's partly because of the fact that it's kind of a lot of people think of it as being quite a commitment to get into podcasting, because you think you've got to do a show every single week or something like that. But I mean, we can get into more about how to make it easier later on. But I think that's partly what puts people off, why the competition's still lower, because it's half-hour shows, say, every single week, and people see that as quite a big commitment. So they think, I'll just create a few YouTube videos, stick them on, or I'll just create a few blog posts, stick them on. There's no commitment. So no, not too late. Definitely plenty of room in the podcasting world. And if you search for your niche, I bet you only find a few around it, unless you're a marketer or a general business. In which case,
or make money or something, one of those. But there's still niches in that too, right? You find your own angle or two. I didn't even have this as a question for you, but I read Tim Ferriss. I started reading Tim Ferriss's new book on I'll link it in the show notes. It's about successful habits and Tools of Titans or something.
Or Tools of Titans.
Yeah, that one. And he talks about, it might be very hard for you to be the top basketballer on earth, but if you combine two different things, then probably not. So to find a tilt, I'm sure there's still opportunities there.
Absolutely. I mean, that's it, isn't it? It's kind of a mantra these days. It's almost a cliche. Find your niche. But it's true. Yeah, you need to find your unique combination of skills, put that out there. And if you can find a podcast around that, and do you know what as well? The fact is that the vast majority of podcasts are, and I always hesitate to say this, and I'm sure it is, but they're interview shows. And it's harder to do a good interview show than most people think. And just by the questions you already asked, Moby, I can tell you're way better than the average. But there's a lot of people out there just doing really bad interview shows, like just total stock standard questions, not even following up. Like you asked a question there based on something I said. That's actually quite uncommon. Quite often people will just have a list of 5 questions in front of them. They'll go through them and that is it. It's just like, yes, thank you. Next question. That's it. So it's actually not hard to stand out in terms of quality, because a lot of the podcasts out there are pretty sort of below the bar in terms of how good they could be.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'll pay you later for that compliment. I appreciate that. So you mentioned gear, right? You mentioned gear like just a couple of answers ago. Is that so? Like, okay. So when I started, right, I wanted to find this. I wanted to show you, right? I just wanted to show you how proud I was. When I started, the first 10 or 12 episodes I did with this thing. Cool. It's a little for people watching the video version. If you're not watching the video version, you can get it on redpandas.com.au/EP84. That's EP84. But anyway, so for those who are watching the video version, this little thing, and I literally recorded on my iPhone for the first 10 episodes, like trying not to shake and like just talking into it for 10 episodes. Because I just thought, look, man, like I'll just start and I'll just do it. So my question is around gear. And you mentioned you're a geek, which I'd love to kind of hear about that. We can talk about what's good and what's not. Is that still holding people hostage? Is that still a barrier? And what are your tips around podcasting gear?
Yeah, the tech side of things is the biggest barrier out there. Well, actually, I mean, there's three biggest questions we get. There are always one of these 3. It's either what equipment do I need? So what setup do I need? That's the microphones and mixers. It's how do I edit the show? So how do I actually turn this raw recording into something that's, take out some of the mistakes, the silences, make it sound good. And then it's how I hate my voice, basically. So two of the 3 are definitely technically minded. They're the technical side of things. And you can make them so much easier. So with the gear, for example, you did it the right way. You've got a really simple mic, plug it into your smartphone and just start recording, because it's the content that matters. It's the content that really makes the difference. And the only way you're going to get good at designing and delivering great content is by practicing it. And you need to do that to get better at it. So you need to just make a simple way to get the content out there so that you can get better and better and better at it. And for me, that means either doing what you did there, getting something for your smartphone. So you can either get, I think that was the Zoom add-on you had there.
The Zoom IQ5, which is probably so obsolete now, but yeah.
No, totally. The Zoom kit, really good. So the IQ5 is a brilliant one. You've got the Shure MV88. That's a very similar type of thing. It just plugs into the end of a smartphone and suddenly you can use it as a digital recorder. Or you've got a SmartLav. So the Rode SmartLav Plus is just a lavalier mic, which basically means just a tie clip mic. It just clips onto your shirt. Put that onto your shirt, plugs into your smartphone, and you get really good quality recordings through them.
I was gonna grab it, but it's just on the shelf too far. But I'll link to the SmartLav, and you've got a section on your site as well, podcasting equipment. So I knew it's got to be something that people ask you a lot about. So I'll link to that as well.
So they're the three simplest ways to start recording for me. I mean, the alternative is to get a USB mic for your computer. So record straight into your laptop. And if you are recording interviews like this, you know, on Skype or whatever, then that's actually the one you need to do. So you need to get a USB mic, plug it into your PC or your Mac and record that way. Although there's always avenues you can down, because you can also actually do it in the mobile too if you have the right app. So there's the Ringer app, for example, RINGR, and that lets you record interviews on your smartphone too. So there's tons of options. But yeah, keep it simple, because the simpler it is, the more easy it is to record, and therefore the more often you'll do it, the more regular you'll be. And that has a powerful effect. If you record every single week on a regular basis, you show up for your listeners every week. That means you grow your audience quick, but also you show up for yourself. You're practicing, you're developing your craft, and you get better at what you do. And that helps you grow your audience as well. So yeah, those two things really important.
I can't remember who said it. Someone said it. I can't remember, but it really stuck with me. The first thing of whatever you do is going to be the worst. So
Yeah.
I thought, hey, you know what? Like my parents always told me, maybe you love to talk. You know, you should be paid for talking one day. And I thought, oh, geez, it'll be really easy because you know I'm like I guess I'm semi extrovert and and whatever. So I'll just get on. But honestly, like you listen to my first 3 episodes or 5 or maybe 10, who knows now, and it's like, welcome to the world of marketing. Like it's so blasé. So I think you're right. Just start with something, and I mean that's going to be your first barrier as well.
Yeah. Just begin, and it all goes from there. It's that's another quote I probably won't remember exactly, but there's something around as soon as you commit yourself, then providence moves to help you. And there's a big thing there. Like as soon as you actually commit to doing something, just things happen around you. It's great.
Amazing. Okay, so all right. So sticking with the theme of, because I want to talk about starting first, and then we'll talk about growing a little bit. Sticking to the theme of starting, and thank you again for those tips. We'll definitely link those in the show notes. Some of that gear you mentioned. Okay, so gear's one side, right? So don't worry about gear. Get onto whatever you have. Even pull out your freaking phone. I remember I did an episode once. My mic wasn't working. I didn't realize I recorded the entire episode on my laptop's audio. It sounded crap. I still put it out there. So just do it. Okay, so that aside, what other tips do you have anyone for starting? You mentioned before, there's ways that you can suggest making it easier. What are some of those things?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things to tackle the other side of the technical problems, barriers. That's the editing stuff. Editing is a funny one because we tend to treat our show as live these days. So me and Matthew's my sort of first in command here at the podcast host, the two of us record a lot of our shows together. And we'll just turn up with a set of notes in front of us. We'll hit the record button and we'll go for it. And we won't edit anything out. We won't assume we're going to edit anything. So if we make a mistake, we just go, oh, sorry, that's not what I meant to do. And just laugh about it and go on. And then all we'll do at the end is top and tail it, by which I mean cut off the silence at the very start and the very end, just to make it match up with the music. And that's it. So it means there's very little editing actually inside the show. And that cuts down the sort of technical barriers by a huge amount, because that takes a long time to go through and edit out the mistakes. I mentioned there, you can even just not bother with music whatsoever. I mean, it's not necessary. There's a load of really good, successful shows out there that started with no music, plenty that still run with no music at all as well. So that's an optional extra. It's polish. So for the first, say, 10 shows, that's just what I usually tell people. Treat it as a pilot project. So pick out a subject within your area. So say what would you say your particular expertise is, Moby? What's your topic?
Oh, I'd say inbound marketing everyone's inbound. Let me niche down a bit more. Marketing automation, HubSpot.
Okay, marketing automation. So cool. So you could do something like your pilot series could be 10 steps to getting set up in HubSpot, say. So you have 10 episodes that are the 10 sort of distinct things that you have to go through. And obviously it could be 7, it could be 6, it could be 12, whatever it is that matches this. But you pick the most common thing you're asked in your niche, and you basically create a little series around that. And it's a course. It's like a beginner's course that introduces people to you. The thing with this is that it starts you off on the seasoned podcasting foot, which is great, because when you create a season of something, it's less committing. So, I talked about earlier, there's a barrier there where people think they've got to put something out every single week. Well, instead, if you say, I'm going to create a 10 episode series and then I'm going to see where I am. You're only committing to 10 episodes. It's less scary. And it also means you're going to get a break at the end of it. So you're going to put those 10 episodes out there. The other thing is it helps your listener. So if you create 10 episodes that actually all link together, then they're learning something and they're building something every single episode. You know, they're building something on the previous episode when they listen to the next, and it's compelling for them. They want to come back for the next because it builds on the last. That's as opposed to, you know, random topics every single episode. The other thing that it does is that when it's a pilot season like that, you're actually creating something evergreen. So even if you get to the end of those 10 episodes, then you've still created quite a big chunky resource. You've created a little audio course on, you know, 10 steps to getting set up in HubSpot. If whoever it is, they've created a little course around whatever they do. And that's really powerful. So even if you stop, you've not wasted your time. You've got this resource you can send out. It could be a lead magnet, it could be an actual paid product, whatever it is. So that's the way I think that it's a great way to start with podcasting. Treat it as a season, plan out that season ahead of time, so that you've got that plan just sitting there. You can record stuff every week, or you can batch it, make it even more efficient, record, you know, 4 episodes at a time. And that helps you get that first season out there, finish that season, sit down, review how it went for you, review the feedback, see what worked, what didn't, ask your listeners what worked and what didn't, and then base the next season on that feedback. That's a great way to start. And I think it makes it a lot easier for people too.
That's a great way to break it down. It really, really is. That, you know, think about it. And I think the other thing too, Colin, well, as you were saying that, I was thinking back to when I started, it was coming up with the first 10, 12, maybe 15 podcasts, the ideas was so much harder than after I've done 50, 60. Like it's just, it doesn't make logical sense, but it actually does in a way, because one thing I didn't realize until I started doing it is it's you don't know that muscle. You don't know you don't have that muscle. So it's like when I started, I'm like, oh God, it's that anxiety. And I don't know if you tell me if you hear this from people, Colin, it's like, yeah, but what am I going to talk about after 10 episodes? What is inbound marketing? The best type of inbound marketing versus outbound marketing, the best type of software. And that's it. Like, what am I going to talk about? So I think that's a great way to de-risk it. We're only going to do 10 and we go from there. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, the seasons approach helps with that too, because you start to break your questions down. You start thinking about these big questions you get in your topic. Like you think of what are the 2 or 3 most common things I'm asked, and you create a season around each of them. But you don't just create one episode around each of those questions. You create a little course around it, and you break it right down. You're going really deep into each niche, and people don't mind you spending 10, 15 minutes deep in one little aspect of it, because you're teaching them, you're helping them, and they can see where they're going. You know, they can see the eventual goal at the end of the season where they know everything about getting started in HubSpot, say. And yeah, it helps a lot with that kind of idea generation.
Awesome. You said something before I don't want to lose. You said something, and so you and your host, what was his name again? Your Matthew. So yeah, so you and Matthew, you said you treat a lot of them like live. I had a question for later, but I want to bring it back now whilst we still have momentum on it. But you said you treat them a lot like live. So, you know, if you kind of stuff up, you say, oh, you know, sorry, whatever. The question is around Facebook Live. Is there a link between Facebook Live or any live streaming for that matter and podcasting? Can one help the other? Can you create one for one medium, or is that not a good idea?
I think it is a good idea in certain contexts. And it's something we're playing with just now, actually. I'm starting to record a lot more of ours while going live. I played with it a couple of years back and I dropped it because I didn't find a way that I was comfortable doing it, because I thought there was a lot of shows, you know, when Periscope first started up and live video kind of blew up really a couple of years ago, maybe it was. There was a lot of people creating their shows and recording it live, but there was too much interaction. You know, nobody wants to listen to a podcast episode where half of the episode you're talking to the live audience, because it's not fun. Yeah. Oh, hi Robert. Hi Julie. How are you doing today? Oh, look, he's commenting on this. It's just not interesting at all. So it ruins the show. So, but I think you can do it in the way that we're playing with it is that we'll take maybe 20 minutes to record an episode of Podcraft. We'll have a set of bullet points ahead of us, in front of us. But what I'm going to do and what we're doing is going on live maybe 10 minutes ahead of recording and actually having a conversation with our live audience. telling them a little bit about the plan, tell them a wee bit of the outline, ask for any feedback, ask for any questions they want to put in the episode, ask for any extra things they want added in. Then we actually jump into the recording. We press the record button, and then we ignore the live audience during recording, even though we're still live.
They're still
But
okay.
we tell the live audience this. So we say, right, we're not going to be interacting with you for the next 15 minutes. We're going to record the episode. You're welcome to watch, and we'll do some Q&A afterwards once we've finished. So we'll record the episode. The episode will be nothing to do with live. It'll just be normal podcast episode. So it's still really suited to the podcast audience. But then as soon as we hit stop, we say, hey, everyone, thanks for watching. And any questions about that? We'd love to do a wee 5-10 minute Q&A based on what we just did in that episode. And I think that I've not been doing it long enough yet to test how effective it is, but it's working really well so far. Just the way people are engaging with it and the content we're getting out of it. It seems working real well. So yeah, I don't know what you think about that, or how many other people are trying that. But
I'm a big fan of anything that kills two birds, one stone, right? Anything that you can kind of, the guys from Impact, in the States, they've got their show as well, Impact Live, I think it is. And then they do that live, and then they transpose that to the podcast, which is interesting as well. But the way you've mentioned it is really interesting as well. So, you're actually working it in. So it's not just a copy and paste, you're working it in. I guess the only thing people got to think about there is they're going to have to do it consistently. I don't have my own live show, but from what I'm told, like the sales line guys, they do it every Friday at 3 p.m. So I guess that's something to think about as well.
I mean, yeah, the danger for me is always you want to, like you say, kill two birds with one stone, and that is a great thing, but not at the expense of quality on both of them, because you can end up, I think, and it's happened a lot in the past, especially like I was saying, when live video first blew up, people were trying to do 2 or 3 things at once. Repurposing is a great thing, but if you're compromising the quality of each one and actually end up with 3 things that are kind of average and not very good, then that's no good. You're better doing 1 great thing than 3 pretty average things. So it's finding ways to do both of them while still somehow leveraging the strengths of each medium. So by doing like a 40-minute broadcast with a 20-minute podcast in the middle, I feel like we're leveraging the live at the start and the end, still giving the live people an exclusive of the recording as well ahead of time. But then we've still got the really dedicated podcast episode too. So I'm hoping it'll work out well.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. I'll find one. I'll link that in the show notes. I'd love to see a version of that. I haven't seen that done before.
Cool,
as opposed to just doing a replay. I like that. You're not just doing a replay, so. Okay. So now I want to freeload and leech some free advice for myself. And if it benefits the audience, so be it. I'm joking. I know it's going to benefit the audience.
No, absolutely.
What makes a good podcast in 2017? Talk to me about format. Talk to me about lengths, that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So a few things in it. Yeah. In terms of format, like I said, I've already alluded to the fact that I think the interview podcast is so overdone. It's really hard to make an interview podcast stand out, partly because the standard format for interview podcasts is to talk to somebody for, 30 minutes to an hour, which is quite a long chunk of time. And there tends to be quite a lot of sidetracks, of waffle, and especially if the interviewer is not very good. Especially if the interviewer is not good at delving into the sort of, or picking up on the little hot points, or really kind of juicy bits and diving into them. So they tend to be quite, I think people are getting less patient with interview podcasts and spending an hour just to get 20 minutes of good content. I think there's 2 things I think that are underdone just now that can work really well for people. Firstly, the solo podcast, just a short solo show. Just people are afraid of doing this though, because they think I can never be interesting enough for 10, 15 minutes just by myself. But it's not true. People tune into a podcast to hear your expertise. If you can actually, put a bit your personality across, be honest, be transparent, tell some stories about your background, about your business, and teach through those stories, people will tune in just to hear yourself. And you can have so much more control over your show when it's just you. So actually you can keep it down to much shorter, more concise lengths. You can just talk for 10, 15 minutes, and actually it's 10, 15 minutes worth of pure value. It's not half an hour with 15 minutes worth. It's 50 minutes of concentrated value. And people get to know you better as well. There's a danger of an interview show that people don't actually get to know much about the interviewer. It's all about the interviewee, and that's good in a way, but you want to talk, you want to build your own authority as well. So that's one thing. Just think about doing some solo shows. Even if you do an interview show mainly, mix in some solo shows every now and again. The other thing with interview shows is that it's not that hard actually to turn an average waffly interview show into a really good high quality interview show. If you want an example of this, I think how I built this is a great example. So it's an NPR show by Guy Raz, interviews people, and he does long, deep interviews, but they're edited down, but in quite a simple way. I mean, the way you can do this is if you have a half-hour interview, for example, get it transcribed possibly. You might have to pay a wee bit for that, but there's ways to automatically transcribe these days using stuff like Trint. It's really cheap, like maybe $5, $10 to get a half-hour show transcribed. And then just read through and pick out a few chunky bits of that are the highlights, that are the best bits. So cut a half-hour show down to 10 or 15 minutes, and just put a few little music beds under the transitions, between the two sections, or maybe even one little narration with yourself, just drawing out some points. You can do that in just a couple of hours. I know it's extra time. I know it takes a bit longer, but like we're saying, this is, ways to stand out above and beyond the crowd. It doesn't take too much effort to do that. And it's a way of it's like a highly produced show, but a light version of it. So I think there's going to be more of that in the future as people realize the value of podcasts and how powerful they can be, that, it's worth spending a couple of extra hours turning that really average show into something that really stands out, really polished.
And it's going to go that way because that was the same. Anything that has noise. I mean, if you started a blog 20 years ago, then you could probably almost write about anything. YouTube now, everyone, they're getting high production. They're getting higher and higher production. And I noticed they spoke about last year was a year of live, but even with live now, you can't just go live. Like everyone's sick of the iPhone with, hey, look at me. Like they're so sick of that. So you're right that this is the same thing's going to happen with podcasting as well. That's really quite interesting. So one thing that I tried, and I don't really, just for, I guess, some background. So what we do with InboundBuzz is we try to, as much as we can, have 1 week with an interview. So 1 week with yourself, and then the week after will be a monologue. Just for a bit of variability, but I don't know whether that sort of throws people, but I'd like to think there's still a pattern there. And, if we speak to anyone, we want a topic like you're here because we're talking about podcasting. So I want to get those points out of you. So
Well, absolutely. That's a really good point too, actually, because quite often you get interview shows which are very, very general. You'll have an interview show, it talks to marketers, say, but actually the headline is always just the name of the marketer, and that's it. So like, for example, if you were to put just my name, you'd probably mention podcasting somewhere in there, but if you can really get the takeaways in there, like really be purposeful about it. It's not just the person's we don't want to hear more backstories of marketers and about, it's just, there's so many of them out there. You want to get their lessons, their learnings, their teachings. And I know that usually comes out during stories, but I just think it's hard to make that stand out these days. So but it's great. Yeah, you talk about a pattern. So maybe an interview, then a solo interview, solo. But the benefit we have as podcasters is that there's no rules here. We can do what we want. We're not on a radio station where we've got to do a certain thing every week. So you can have like 3 interviews and 2 solos. Then mix it up, get a few guests on and do a round table, get a co-host on for a couple of episodes. I think there needs to be some consistency, but then you're the consistent part of it. It's a show around the main host. So as long as you have something that's consistent that brings people back, I think that's the key thing.
Absolutely. Good advice. So you've got this thing, right? So speaking of making it kind of easier, you've got this thing, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation here. Alatu. See, I knew I was going to get it wrong.
I don't mind how people.
Look, my excuse is my Australian accent, so let's run with that. Alatu, right? What is it? How does it work?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, three biggest questions we get are, microphones, how to edit, and then your confidence. So we have a full guide around equipment, we have coaching stuff around how to be confident, but we didn't really have any way to hugely help people with the editing process until Alitu. So that it was designed to conquer that problem. It was designed really to it was almost just a tool for us originally, because how I said we record as if it's live. So
Mm.
we just really wanted a tool that we could take our 20-minute show, we could stick it into a tool, we could tell it, here's where the show starts and ends, so there's a trim, and then what we want you to do is just go away and process automatically. Just do a bit of noise reduction, do the EQ, make sure the levels are all right, and stick on our start and our end music. Actually automatically stitch on the intro and the outro. And that's what we built. So that's what it does. It takes that raw audio recording and it can do it entirely automatically. So even if you don't even need the top and tail, all you do is upload and it will publish a processed file for you. It'll make it sound good, it'll add your branding, and it'll actually publish it to your host as well. We've got editing tools in there too for people who want to do a bit of editing. So if you do want to cut out a few mistakes or you want to do that top and tail, we've designed a way to allow people to do that in a really simple way, because audio editing software is a total nightmare for people that don't really know their way around it. It's like an airplane cockpit. There's too many tools. It's designed for proper audio engineers to do crazy big editing projects with like 100 tracks and 20 different instruments and all that kind of stuff. It's not what we need as podcasters, but people are still using that type of software. So we've designed a really simple way to be able to just drag and drop, cut out mistakes, to just sort of really easily preview cuts, that kind of thing. So that's in there too. So it's those two routes. Basically, you can go entirely automated, don't care about editing at all, or you can do a little bit of editing but make it really simple. And that's what we're intended to do.
Oh man, honestly, if I had that when I started, like for me, I wasn't worried about, although it was harder than I thought, I wasn't worried about talking. I really wasn't worried too much about the gear, because I've seen people do incredible things on iPhones. It was like you're so right about the software. So I use Boss Jock, which some people still use, but you can't edit anything. So the Boss Jock, for those who are brave enough, you can just record. You can have a top and tail, but you can't really edit much in terms of your podcast, and it's iPhone based, so there's a limit there. I think I got a phone call once and I lost half my podcast, which was just crazy. and then, so what I use is Adobe Audition, but I had to do a lynda.com course on it to learn how to use it. And now I just use it. Now I just know how to use it. But you're absolutely right. So with this tool, okay, cool. So you spoke about gear. That's no longer an excuse. You can use Alatu, where you can actually upload your recording. You can edit it and put the top and tails on as well. Okay, awesome. And then it takes it to your host as well. So that takes care of the hosting.
Yeah, because there's always been that kind of problem as well, where there's no real link between it all. So you've got your audio file in the end, but then you've got your podcast hosting provider, and then you've got your website that it's actually published on too, and that can be three different things. So you've got to log in, your host to upload the file and then put it onto your website, and there's ways to link that stuff together, but for a lot of people, they're still going between all these different services. So we want to all together so that if somebody comes to us and says, I want to start a podcast, we can say to them, right, cool, we can sign you up for Alitu, and then actually that links into a host. Our eventual aim is to have a hosting provider we're tied into, so that can be included in the package, so they don't even have to care about that stuff. It just works.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'll link to that. Definitely link to that in the show notes. Do you have pricing, or is that sort of more on the website? Or
we're in beta testing right now. So
I noticed the website. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a very basic website there right now, just to let people express their interest in the beta test, which is actually going out right now. So yeah, if anybody's listening to this and they fancy helping us try it out, then by all means pop over to alitu.com and sign up. But I mean, within the next couple of months, we'll be live commercially, so you can actually properly sign up too. So that URL will still have the sign up with better pricing and all that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. That's going to be music to anyone's ear who's thinking of starting. So do you guys also host currently, like outside of Alitu, do you guys also host podcasts as well? And I guess maybe work that into an answer about, because we haven't spoken much about it, but we've touched on it. What is a podcast host? Why do people need to think about that in addition to the gear and everything else?
Yeah. So once you've recorded it, once you've edited it, you end up with an MP3 file. Basically, it's just an MP3 file with your voice on it, your podcast episode. It's not technically a podcast though until you get it onto the web and allow people to subscribe. I mean, technically, that's what separates a podcast from an audio file. It's the ability to subscribe to that series basically and get those episodes automatically. So to do that, you need a podcast hosting provider because standard web hosting is not great at dealing with audio files because they're a lot bigger. They need to stream over time, that type of stuff. So we tend to work with podcast hosting providers for this. There's quite a lot out there. The top names in the industry are things like Libsyn, like Blueberry, like Podbean, podcastwebsites.com, those places. And they tend to, basically it's a place to upload your audio file to, and then they help you deliver those audio files to the world.
iTunes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they create what's called an RSS feed. You don't need to care how that works. All you need to know is the RSS feed is what you give to iTunes or what you give to Stitcher or TuneIn Radio or whatever it is you're putting your podcast. And then they'll draw it, excuse me, from there. And that's how the world accesses your podcast from then on.
So do you guys do that as well? And what's, I guess, why do you do it? Why do you think that's maybe better or different to what else is out there?
We used to do podcast hosting, but we don't anymore. So we got out of that business because it was just too commoditized, I found. And there was other people out there doing it really well. So there didn't seem any point in us competing on it. So we tend to recommend, we use Blueberry pretty extensively. We use Libsyn a lot as well. We work with the guys over at podcastwebsites.com. They're great for providing a really good website that goes around it as well. So you've actually got a home for your podcast on the web at the same time. So yeah, I mean, we've got an article. Maybe it's a good place for people to go. If they go on to thepodcasthost.com / hosting, I believe. If that doesn't exist already, I shall create it.
Yes, the 301. Yeah, sure.
Exactly. And and that'll take you to our best podcast hosting article, and that'll actually take you through the pros and the cons of each service and show you which one's probably the best for you, because it's kind of context dependent, what you need, what you want, but that should take them through it.
Right. Okay. So that's good advice. That you've got some tips there on what people can use. You mentioned Blueberry. Was it Blueberry?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Blueberry.
Podbean.
Standard Web 2 spelling, so it's BLUBRRY. No vowels.
Okay. We'll find that link as well. The resource on your site, and we'll link that as well. And that's honestly, guys, that's really good advice, because I'm on SoundCloud now. And look, I'm just going to be real. I'm sure they're not going to hunt me down. But honestly, if I could go back now, I wouldn't. But I'm stuck with SoundCloud now because it's, to switch, it's so much harder.
You're right. SoundCloud's not the best choice, but a lot of people do it because it's cheap and it's quite easy to set up, and the player's pretty. It's a sexy looking player, I have to admit. But it's not that hard to switch. You can switch over a lot. Most of the hosting providers give you a really simple way to switch over. Like, they'll just soak out your feed from SoundCloud, put it into their own, and then go from there. So it's an option.
Okay, well, cool. I just got to stop being lazy and then do it, I guess. Okay, so let's talk about growth, right? So I don't like, even before I ask this question, I know it's different for everyone, but the question inevitably people are going to think about and ask is, what numbers should they be aiming for? Is that even a good measure? If it isn't, tell us.
It isn't a great measure, but it's the only one we've got, really. It's the only number we've got, because the one of the downsides of podcasting is that the stats aren't great right now. There's a few things going on right now in the industry which might fix this, but as of now, downloads, listens are basically the only measure we have. To give you an idea, the Libsyn actually talk about their stats. So Libsyn's one of those hosting providers I talked about. They have a guy called Rob Walsh that works for them that releases their stats quite often. So it gives you an idea of the average podcast listenership. And like you say, it's totally niche dependent. So like, if you're doing something about scissor collecting or something. I've got a pair of scissors.
What? There's what? No, I'm checking.
Someone random, someone really niche, and you might only be able to 200 listeners might be actually really good for a show like that. Whereas if you're doing a really general purpose show, actually 10,000 listeners maybe is a really good thing to aim for. But if you are basically the stats are something along the lines of if you're above 1,400, I believe it was last time I checked, you're about in the top 10%. So actually, the average podcast only has a few hundred listeners.
So, okay, is that a month? Is that a week? What is that? Is that per episode?
Per episode, yeah, per episode. So we tend to go per episode. And it's around, you'll look at your stats and see how many people downloaded an episode within 30 days of release. So in 30 days following the release, how many people downloaded it? And so if you're in the sort of 300 to 400 mark, you're already in sort of an average area of podcast listeners. You're doing quite well. If you go above that, if you get up to like 1,000, 1,400, you're into the top sort of 10% or so of numbers. And I think once you're up to 5,000, I'm just trying to see if I can get it in front of me, but if you're in the top five, if you're above 5 to 10,000, you're in like the top 1 to 2% of listenerships on the web. So You're doing really well. So people tend to undervalue their numbers with podcasting. It's one of those things, if you have, because of the regularity of it, like imagine 300 people, say that's an average podcast, you might think 300 people, that's not very much. But if you had the chance to get 300 people in a room in front of you every single week and talk to them about what you do and turn those 300 people into raving fans, that is a hugely powerful thing. And it bears out in the conversions as well. Like podcast listeners convert so much higher than video or blog listeners. Like say your conversion rate is like, 0.5% on a blog post. You put a call to action in a blog post, 0.5% of the people that look at it will convert. With a podcast, you're looking at more like a quarter to a half of your listeners will actually do what you ask them to do, because they're so much more engaged. They're listening. They know you. They trust you because they know you through, they know your personality. They intimately connect with you through your voice and their ears. So the conversions matter. So 300 listeners is worth, 10 times that in terms of blog readers. So yeah, don't undervalue podcast listenerships.
And I mean, how long does one stick with that? Is there a point, or is it just sort of like if the trajectory is going up, then you just sort of keep on going, or do those kind of numbers take years and years?
No, I mean, you can get to, so when we launch a show, even if we're launching with somebody that has a really new audience, with the right launch plan, you can get up to 300 listeners or so within, let's say, 3 months or so. That's realistic. But if you don't manage it within 3 months, you're still, even if you're up to 100, 200 by that point, then that's fine. We tend to, with our new shows, we hope to, because we've got a bit of platform, we aim for, a few thousand within the first 6 months or so per episode I'm talking about. Like the last show we launched, we managed to get about 5,000 on the first episode. But, that's just because we're helping to promote it on different shows. We're actually spending money on marketing. We're putting a lot of effort into it. But I'm just saying it's realistic. If you have money and time to put into a marketing plan, then it's possible to get a few thousand around a show pretty quickly. But more realistically, you're doing it organically. 300 to 500 within a few months. Aim for 1,000, say, within the first 6 months to a year. And that's a good platform to grow from there.
So you guys specifically at the podcast host, when you say you launch shows, you're talking about your own shows, right? You're not talking about when customers come on, or you help them with that as well?
Both. Yeah, we do both. Yeah. So we just launched a new show of our own 2 months ago called Hostile Worlds. So it was a space exploration show, which we've been planning for a while. And it's been really good fun to put together. So that's the one I was talking about that we managed to get sort of somewhere around 5,000 in the first few episodes. But yeah, client shows as well, we'll do the same thing. We'll just help them with the marketing. We'll help them put it out there and figure out how to get it, leverage on their platforms, how to get out to other people, that type of stuff.
Yeah, awesome. Definitely, I'm sure some of our listeners will check you guys out after this as well. So, okay, so I want to talk about, just got a couple of questions left for you. And
cool.
Because one thing that I always get about a question I get from people about my podcast is money. Like they automatically think I did it for money. Now, if I'm wrong, you tell me, man, because I'm guessing there's probably an element that this is wrong. But I've always said like, if money is your primary motivation to start a podcast, then that probably isn't a great idea, because after, 4 weeks, you're going to realize you can probably make a lot more money doing something else. So like
Yeah.
having the opportunity of speaking to a guru like yourself, how hard is it to make money from podcasts? And is it a bad mantra to go in with saying, I'm going to make money out of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think with any type of content, it's not the right place to start, because it takes time to build up an audience around any kind of content, not just podcasting. But if you get in a video, blogging, whatever it is, it's not an immediate get rich quick scheme, is it? But it's realistic to make money out of podcasting as well. So I don't want to say that it's not. It's just that it'll take you 6 months to a year to build a big audience around it to start being able to earn from it. I mean, are you interested? You want to go into a few of the ways that it's possible to monetize a podcast, and
Mm-hmm.
would be able to do.
Yeah. So how? Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people start with affiliate marketing, actually. I mean, so sponsorship is probably the most obvious. So that's the one people always think of first, find a sponsor for your show. So it's basically just someone to advertise on your show. So for your one, for example, you're talking about HubSpot. HubSpot are an obvious sponsor. So you could get HubSpot to pay you a fee every month to actually give them a proper advert. I do a mountain biking show, so we get sponsored by bike makers, by bike manufacturers, by bike magazines, by other bike podcasts, that kind of stuff. Find a sponsor like that, and then you set up a deal with them where they generally pay you a set fee per episode. Often that fee will depend a bit on your listenership. So that's a way to monetize down the road, but you don't tend to be able to make a decent amount of money out of sponsorship until you're into the 2,000 to 3,000 listenership mark and above. So the shows that make good money out of that will be 10,000 listeners or more, for example.
Yeah.
So before that, though, affiliate marketing is a good way, because you can basically fake sponsorship, because you can just find products that you use, sign up for their affiliate programs, and then start actually promoting them via their affiliate programs. And that starts to pay for some of your costs. We talk about microphones, we talk about mixers, and we link to them on Amazon, and people go and buy them through our link, and we get a bit of commission through that. And that actually is a pretty significant income at our business because of the amount of times we've done that over the years. So it builds up and up and up as you can do it more and more. So they're the two places to start, I would say. Affiliate income when your audience is small, and then sponsorship when your audience is big. And the other ways to do it are, having your own product and service is probably the most common way outside of that, because a business maybe will create a podcast to market themselves, market their brand, grow trust around their brand, and that helps them sell a service or sell a product. So that's quite a good way to do it. Often personal brand people, if it's yourself, you might create a course around whatever you're teaching, and you sell that via your podcast. Every single podcast episode you'll mention that course, and people will trust you and like you, so they'll buy the course. And the final way is that some people actually sell the podcast itself. So it is possible to do premium content. So you might do say a monthly subscription to get premium podcast episodes, where you do the main podcast episode, you talk about a topic, but then you do a 20-minute add-on where you interview some expert about their particular takeaways about that, their top 2-3 tricks or something that they use related to what they talked about. But it's extra juicy content that people pay extra for. And they call that premium content. And there's ways to do it. There's a few different ways to actually deliver that make it really simple too. So yeah, there's a few different ways to do it. And often people end up with a mix of all of those, actually. So there's no one way you have to stick to.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's a lot of great juicy advice there. So probably one of my final, I guess, kind of podcasting direct related questions is, so you've been doing it for a while now. You guys have been behind, 4 to 6 podcast shows, and you're launching it all the time. What have you learned, maybe in a couple of salient points, about how to grow a successful podcast? How do you really kind of grow? And maybe you have some tactical ideas, like, promote each one on social media, or, things like that. Anything like that comes to mind.
Yeah. With the growth stuff, actually, I tend to come back to a lot of so when you're launching it in the first place, it's down to the basics of leveraging the people that already know you and like you. A lot of people forget to make the ask. You put your show out there. If you've got a mailing list, no matter how small, if you've got a social media following, no matter how small, really get out there and ask them to help you out. Say, please go and listen to my show. And then next week, if you like the show, please tell a friend about this, and start that kind of viral sharing in that way. So that's always a good place to start. We often run competitions as part of a launch program. So if we're working with a client, or if it's one of our own shows, we'll often try and find somebody related, a potential sponsor, for example, and ask them for a product, and we'll mention them on the show, but we'll have that product as a prize. And that can be a really good way to do it, a competition which encourages viral sharing as well. So if you find a tool that actually, the type of competition you enter, you get one entry, but if you share it out on social, you get another entry. If you send it via email, you get another entry. If you share it on this other platform, you get another entry. So that encourages people to share that competition for you. I find that works really well too. A big thing for me in growth as well, long term, is actually a lot of podcasters don't follow the standard inbound marketing stuff, like email marketing, for example. They don't collect emails. They don't actually create a lead magnet, say, whereby even for something like my mountain biking podcast, it's not a business focused thing. It's not, it's not in that kind of world. I might create a little ebook about the 10 steps to maintaining your bike every week. The 10 things you do to keep your bike healthy every single week. And that's a lead magnet. And I link that at the end of every single show. And people will sign up via their email address to get that ebook. This is how you grow your audience. You basically get them onto the email and encourage them to come back and back and back. That's the thing with podcasting. It's a snowball type approach. It's a slow rolling thing, but once you start to roll quicker and quicker, it really gathers pace. So if you can get people to come back for 5 episodes, they'll come back for 100. It's creating that loyalty. It's creating that habit of listening. It's having them around for long enough to get to know you, to trust you, to like you, that they'll just keep coming back, and you'll be one of their top 5 shows forevermore. Basically, podcast listeners are so hugely loyal. So it's about that, creating that first loyalty. And there's a few different ways. So the only other thing I would say, you mentioned adverts. So paid ads actually work really well. Facebook is great for targeting that niche. You can do the combined audiences of, say, people that have an interest in podcasts and an interest in mountain bikes, and suddenly you've got a hugely targeted audience there that are going to listen to your show. And because, like I say, podcasts have a lot less competition just now. For example, there's actually only half a dozen mountain biking podcasts out there. So somebody that's really into mountain biking, I don't have much competition. Stick on Facebook, just throw a few pennies at it, and actually you can gather real loyal listeners that way. So yeah, hopefully that's a few places to get started.
That is amazing stuff, Colin. So that's a great way to look at it. People might say, oh, there's 12, there's already 12 podcasts out in my industry. Yeah, but what are the chances that they're actually reminding people with emails, as you say? Maybe half of them. Then what's the chances they're actually using Facebook ads? The field gets smaller and smaller, and then, making those veneer adjustments as you go on, like little things like, hey, if videos working great on Facebook, then one thing that I've started doing, which I haven't done enough of, but I'll definitely do a lot more of, is taking videos. So Kara, a mutual friend of ours, Kara's interview was one of the best ones we did. And I took a video snippet of the interview and I shared it on LinkedIn's platform, and that just went gangbusters because everyone who liked that, I tagged her, everyone who liked that saw it. So honestly, Colin, talk about leeching free advice. This has been, I think, a masterclass on podcasting. A lot of people think about it. The other thing too, you got to think about, a lot of people think about it, and you know this, Colin, right? A lot of people think about it. Only a very smaller percentage actually do it. So the barriers are not that high,
One last thing, actually, just you mentioned there about, half a dozen people. You were talking about the other half a dozen podcasts out there in your industry as competition, but actually the other thing about podcast listeners is that they are epic listeners. They don't tend to just have one podcast. They'll have 5 or 6 top podcasts. So there's so much opportunity for partnerships there. So like if we were in the same industry, we could, we could co-host a show and put it on both of our feeds. It's actually a really nice way to introduce somebody else to your audience, and you get introduced to their audience as well. And that it's a great way to to grow, because they're already podcast listeners and they're looking for more great stuff to listen to. So if you can get on other people's shows, that's a really valuable.
That's good. It's like guest blogging, guest podcasting. There you go.
Totally.
There you go. Colin, honestly, thank you so much. I'm going to link to everything you mentioned. I'm going to go back through this and try to find everything that you did speak about. I'm curious, what does the podcast host listen to? What do you actually first talking about Podcraft? Tell everyone about Podcraft and why they should maybe tune into that show, and then tell me about some of your favorite podcasts that you're listening to at the moment.
Yeah, cool. Podcraft is our show about how to podcast. Basically, it's about the industry of podcasting, and we do it in what I would consider a kind of best practice approach. So we try to lead by example in there, obviously. It's seasons based. We tend to teach a topic per season. For example, first season is about how to release your first episode, 10 steps to releasing your first episode. We've got a season on how to build a podcast website. We've got a season on how to choose your podcast equipment. So people can go back and listen through whatever season suits the stage they're at. So, but you can just jump in at the end and start listening to the most recent episodes too, if you want. So yeah, you can find that over at podcraft.net if anybody's interested. But yeah, thanks for letting me mention that. But yeah, in terms of what I listen to, I'm just opening up my my player just now.
Please do, man. Yeah,
I have some of the standard ones. So I mean, Tim Ferriss is one of the most popular shows in the world, for rightly so though, because he does go in deep and do really good stuff.
Yeah, God.
I mentioned How I Built This. Great show, absolutely brilliant show. One of the best examples of a well done interview show. Yeah. I listen to quite a lot of drama, so audio drama. So there's one called The Bright Sessions, for example, which is a kind of sci-fi audio drama. There's Wow, so this is a random one. I've got a 5-year-old son, and I've got him into podcasting by listening to Wow in the World, which is a great show from NPR.
Oh, really? I got a 5-year-old. I didn't know you could get them into podcasting. That's a good idea.
Yeah, no. Wow in the World is brilliant. It's actually really good. It's taught me a bunch of science stuff. So it's science education, but kind of dramatized. It's two guys, a guy and a girl, going around and just doing crazy stuff. It's cool. What else do I like? I've got This Week in Startups. I always quite enjoy the news there. I've got A Scottish Podcast is another drama one, which is worth listening to. And of course, I'd love it if anybody would check out Hostile Worlds as well. So yeah, hostileworlds.net is our space exploration one too. So yeah, I hope that gives you an idea. I've got kind of out of listening to business and marketing and startup type ones. I've just kind of taken a break from that and try to create more stuff rather than listening to that for the moment. So it's more the fun stuff right now.
Yeah, awesome. That's cool. The only reason why I didn't want to get into the fun stuff is I thought if my mind starts using this as an avenue for entertainment, I will stop the education side. But I think it's good to take a break. So
I go up and down on it. I'll go through a month where I listen to nothing but business, startup, SaaS type stuff. And then I'll listen to just a month of drama, stories, that kind of stuff. It's a big mix.
That's awesome, man. Colin, this has been a lot of fun, honestly. Thank you so very much. It's a little bit of a trip down memory lane for me, thinking about my old Zoom and everything. And it's been a lot of fun, man. Thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing. I love what you're doing for the community.
No, you're absolutely welcome. It was a good fun, and thanks for having me on.